Perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect. Perfect timing because I wanted to say we could talk about what we're going to talk about at the beginning of the episode. Like I can see it being part of the content.
Yeah, like a little preview, a little stick around for what's up next.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to Lawless podcast with Justin and Clayton. Clayton's my buddy Justin. We're smart. We talk about things. Um,
And we're also pretty freaking cool.
yeah, we're pretty
Because I
dang
don't
awesome.
I don't know if you saw that when I did that little peace sign. That
Yeah,
was
dude.
freaking cool.
Yeah, dude. You're rad.
Yeah.
Fucking wicked.
Wicked awesome.
Yeah, wicked sick.
So man, freaking it's Tuesday afternoon. This is outside of our norm, but it is
This
pretty
is
free.
Yeah, I mean, this is our working hours. I figure might as well get some of this done. I mean, I spend my time is shifting more and more pretty much predominantly to content creator, like production and editing. It's usually editing or some sort of production during the daytime, and also doing my own thing here and there in between or all around. But like this is the best time for me to get this done.
Well, I guess I didn't realize you were spending so much time editing and producing because if that's the case, then why does my voice still sound so
Hmm.
terrible?
Yeah.
Like you have this rich, deep, like like I'm not sure I was gonna say meaty, but
A
I didn't
very meaty sound, a throaty. Very.
I didn't like how that was going down.
No,
You
I
you
appreciate that.
you've got a pleasing voice, and when I listen to it, I'm just like, man, do I sound like that? It's no wonder we
Well,
only get like 5 minutes at a time. Like people
mm,
are people are listening. They're like, I can't do it.
yeah, tap out it here. I think everybody hates the sound of their own voice, or at least they're super critical of the sound of their own voice.
I think. Hmm. I think maybe I just need to talk a little bit deeper.
Or what you need to do is inflame your throat by smoking right before.
Cigarettes. That's exactly what I need.
I mean, it doesn't have to be
Sometimes
cigarettes. You can smoke anything right before, and it does the trick.
anything that'll catch on fire.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Anything natural from God's earth.
That's right. Um, all right. Well, I'll get over it. I'll get past that. But
Another thing is I still use the free version. There's a free version of CapCut is the main software that I use. A ton of content creators use CapCut. Um, I think at one point Joe Rogan was specifically like branding for them or whatever, or like being sponsored by them. But it's an excellent free software that anyone can use. If you want to my daughter, my 9 year old, is using it in her elementary school in a project for like arts. Like they're creating multimedia or whatever digital media
isn't it
in.
cool the stuff that kids are going to the kids can do, but what they're
Oh,
going to
for
be able
sure.
to do in just the next couple of years?
Well, I think that's a healthy way to look at AI because we are, and I think kind of rightfully so, seeing it as the end of the world. And maybe it is the end of the world, it's the end of our world.
Yeah.
But just like the internet, and I mean the telephone and the internet was really the telephone, but specifically the internet and email was the death knell in parcel mail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Parcel mail, when it seen the internet, they're like, oh, well, I guess we're obsolete. We're replaced by the machines. And yeah, you are.
Well, probably the first response was, "Psh, you're telling me that you don't want all this paper? You're telling
Dude,
me that you don't want these physical bills? Are you crazy? It'll never
have
work."
have you I already know the answer to this, but have you heard of Tucker Carlson is mostly he's only doing his own production, mostly a podcast, right? You know that?
I did not know that.
Okay, so Tucker Carlson got fired by Fox News some years ago. He admits that he got fired. He has transitioned. I need to stop saying ums. I mean, we're a couple years into this now, and I still catch myself.
Yeah, dude, come on.
Uh, Geez, Louise, he does a podcast right now, That's his main gig. But he puts all of the production value. You can tell, like he's bringing decades of mainstream journalism skills into this podcast that he's doing. Well, he's doing a whole series called the 9/11 Files, and
Okay.
he's putting it all out there, and it is unclassified. Like he's naming the source, the Freedom of Information, the CIA.gov Act, the FBI file. Um, I think so the second episode just released yesterday, and I'm convinced the CIA had a part in 9/11, homie.
Really? What?
Yeah.
So I'm going to listen to it for sure. But what can you tell us about the first episode uh, that
So
brought you here?
so what made it jump out and what we were just talking about, and hopefully I can weave it back in, is that like up into 2001 and even to 2003 and like 2005, the FBI was still transitioning to email. So when 9/11 happened, they had to mail the wanted pictures of the terrorists and like the Al Qaeda network to every field office. There was no email. They didn't email it
Really?
out. And
In
yeah,
2001?
in 2001. So that he talks about that on here, and I'm actually fast forwarding it. That's what made me think about what brought it to mind is that after 9/11 they had to email each other, or not, they couldn't even email each other. They had to mail the wanted list, and they mailed all this back and forth. There was no email. Um, Talking about his series that he's doing for a little bit. So first, it's been pretty disclosed that the one of the big failures, there's been multiple 9/11 commissions that's happened since 9/11 happened, and most of them happening during George Bush's presidency, George Bush Jr.'s presidency, as a review of how 9/11 happened and the failures, so we could learn from it. It was at every level stamped down and suppressed by the Bush administration. Like they said, "Hey, we don't want to talk about that. That's old news. We're moving on. We're
We're still
yeah,
talking about this creep.
yeah, exactly. We're still talking about this creep." George Bush Jr. was doing that um, on these 9/11 reviews, but even before then, so these Saudis, there's 1911 or there's 19 9/11 hijackers. They are all from Saudi Arabia. All of them, I want to say all of them, but like at least all of them except for one, but I want to say all of them got their visas. So they got a Saudi Arabia passport and they got a visa from the U.S. Embassy to come to America from the U.S. Embassy that was fielded by oh man, I don't want to misprint. I want to say Comey, but I think I'm getting my
This
streams of consciousness confused.
this
Comey
this
was the
isn't
FBI guy.
this isn't the Bill Barr thing, is it? Because I've been
No,
hearing about the Bill Barr visa scheme, but that's something different.
I think so.
Okay.
So it's not Comey. That's the FBI guy, but it was someone in the Bush administration that was very famous on his intelligence. So this guy was the
Oh, Rumsfeld?
CIA. No, 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 no. Farther down than that. Um, he was the CIA station chief of this one station where all these 9/11 the 9/11 terrorists got their U.S. visas. He
Okay.
was also the head of the first 9/11 commission review, like the people to say, "Hey, we're going to investigate how this thing went awry." He was in charge of that. So literally, I mean, you can already see where this is going. The guy who let the terrorist in, literally let the terrorist into the United States, signed off on their visas, is investigating how did these terrorists get in here in the first place?
What are the odds? And I guess it's like were they all issued the same day, same time? Like,
No, but from the same office.
okay.
And so there was a CIA, there's a couple retired CIA, one specifically who like does a lion's share of the talking, but a CIA field agent that was in North Africa at the time because I think they got their visas from a spot in Yemen. Like they're all Saudi Arabian citizens and they had Saudi Arabian passports, but they got their visa from a field office or from an embassy in Yemen, not
Okay.
Saudi Arabia. There was a CIA investigator that was testifying, and they had, like, even back then in the postal days when everything was snail mail, that's how they shared information. They had some form of a way of sharing information. So, like, the CIA would get something, and an agent, like this agent says he did, would say, "Hey, the FBI needs to know about this," and they would file this form. And I want to say it's like CIF, like a Central Intelligence Flyer or form or something like that. But it's CI something they would file and their chain of command would have to approve it, and then they would share that with the FBI, because what this guy said he wanted to share was that there was these people who were known associates of Islamic radicals, like had been going to the same mosque, had been going to the same family barbecues, had been going, to this or that. They all got their visas, and now they're all making trips to the United States. Most of them are going there, but some are even going and coming back and then making trips back and forth. This CIA officer is like, "Hey, we need to send this to the FBI," runs it up his chain of command, and his chain of command says, "No, that's a CIA problem. That's not an FBI problem." And so does not inform the FBI. The FBI themselves independently start to notice the pattern of these guys coming back and forth, but from the way information was being shared, and from the way that the series is talking, it was almost like egos. Like, no, we would know if someone from Saudi Arabia was coming here. Like, it's obviously not these guys. These guys aren't on our radar. These are the people we're supposed to be looking for. It was kind of like, go ahead.
That would be very similar
Yeah.
to a detective working uh, on a task force in the DEA.
Yeah.
Somebody like you says, "Hey,
Hmm.
I've been doing some work. Here's some targets," and then that guy saying, "Thanks. I think we're good.
I
Go,
mean, I
go."
have experienced what you're describing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing
Yeah.
where one agency or one investigation or one investigative authority is like, "Fuck off, dude. Like we know what we're doing. We don't need you."
Y- Yeah. And this is on the federal scale. Imagine us, I mean, I know you can talk to it a lot more than me, but just us as just county cops, how many how many investigations hinge on the relationship that that cop has with that detective, or that detective
Oh
has
yeah,
with the DA?
for sure. That's the biggest.
Right.
That that relationship, um, man, dude. I say this all the time. People would be
Yeah.
shocked. People would be
Yeah.
shocked to find out why their case didn't get investigated or that it
Yeah.
never got investigated. It was never
Right.
assigned.
It was never even read by the
Yeah.
detective when as soon
It
as the
had
detective saw who it was from.
it had a name on it and was automatically dismissed.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that happened. We saw probably multiple instances of that. You saw way more than me, but I saw it from more, like, there's multiple names, not just one name. Now imagine a culture of that stemming back from the 40s and 50s. Like, since the CIA broke off from the OSS in the United States in the late 40s, 47, there had been a rivalry between them and the federal agents that already existed. Uh, I'm I'm producing. It feels so weird to say that, but I'm recording. I'm creating content for for an Exhibit A podcast, and it's gonna be on MK Ultra. And
It's going to be so good. I'm so
I
excited
talked
about
about
that.
that. Yeah. Well, I'm like, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing it's going to be multiple parts, because, like,
Oh
I
yeah.
want to have a 2 minute blurb about this. I'm like, oh no, I can't talk about that in 2 minutes. I have to talk about some names and
Yeah,
dates.
dude, this is going to be a season.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it can be going back. So going back from the guy I want to talk about is a guy in my podcast. The guy I'm researching a lot right now is a guy named George H. White. And George H. White, he started his law enforcement career in, I think, 36, like in the late 30s. And he started at like out of high school, started as an investigative journalist for the local paper and was like finding the little gambling rackets and the booze joints and this and that for the newspaper, but that quickly got boring for him. So he applied to be a new federal agent. The FBI was new back then. He wanted to be an FBI agent. Well, they repeatedly told him no. Like they even had a file dedicated to him, and he stamped it like not FBI material multiple times. Well, so he goes from there and pivots from multiple no's from the FBI and lands a career in the Federal Narcotics Bureau. It was before DEA, is like in the
Okay.
late 30s, Federal
Yeah.
Narcotics Bureau. And they were going after the hemp, the marijuanas, the blacks and the Mexicans. They were hammering them hard.
Hmm.
And it's funny because like all the case law that even didn't even call it case law, but just like growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I know cops can't just pick you up by your collar and start beating you up for information because like we got rules. We know our cops can't do that. Well, back then they did not have these rules. And
Okay.
so
Little
he
shakedown.
yeah, he set the I think it was his second case. Yeah, they talk about this in the source material I'm going through. I'm using a lot of other people's research to get my own notes. His second his first case in the Federal Narcotics Bureau was to go find a heroin dealer in New York City. And he was like, "Oh, this is no problem." They gave him a little bit of cash and they said if you lose this cash, it's going to come out of your paycheck. So he found a heroin dealer at a bar and said, "Hey, can you get me, excuse me, sir, can I buy some heroin?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I'll be right back." Took all his money and, of course, never came back
Out the back door.
out the back door. So he knows he's going to owe this money to the agency, pulls out even more of his own money, goes to find another heroin dealer. Same thing is like, "Hey, excuse me, sir, can I buy some heroin?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll be right back." And he's like, "No, no, no, I'm gonna follow you to your house." So he follows this guy to his house, and the guy was like, "Okay, my wife's sleeping. Wait right here. I'll be right back." Goes inside the house and jumps out the back window and ditches him. um, has like a 5 day, doesn't call his boss, doesn't check in, has like a 5 day manhunt, tracks this guy down at like some other spot across town, says, "Hey, I need my heroin." Well, no heroin. "Well, I need my money back." No money. Says that at this point, and this is in his official report, like has to make a report after this, says this guy then pulls out a knife and lunges at me, so I have to shoot him twice in the head. Pop, pop.
No other option.
This is his first case on the job. He gets in an officer involved shooting, and like he gets reprimanded for it, and they're like, "Don't knock that off. We don't need you killing people." And he's right back on the street. Like there is
Okay.
no time off. There's no investigation. He's just back on the street. Um, this guy, he has a crazy story. He ends up. So yeah, I can talk about. He gets recruited by the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, during World War II. The wartime effort. They recruit from all over. They recruit from the military, but they recruit from like Department of State, from what was the FBI back then, from the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And I guess they have like a profiler, like a psychologic profiler that's going through these candidates and specifically looking for risk takers and people who are willing to work unsupervised and like, you know,
Do they
yeah.
still have those jobs?
Well, I mean, I imagine they do. They just grade it differently. But yeah, so they ended up coming on this guy, George H. White, and they're like, "Hey, we got this kind of loose end in Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Let's see if they want to get rid of him, or at least lend him out, on this task force. What would have been back then?" And they said the FBN was all too happy to get rid of him. They're like, "Yeah, take him, get rid of him, get him out of our hair." So he goes to the school. Is called, I think that the comic book X-Men was based on this, but it was called X Ranch in California. And it was, yeah, it was called the X Ranch, and it was where the OSS trained their spies in America. And so they taught like how to break into houses, how to steal cars, how to, how to speak different languages, all the spycraft, all the James Bond stuff.
Yeah.
They learned that there. And they specifically, like, this is from his journal and even like training sources. They're like, if you think you're going to be compromised because of a witness, like a witness stumbles upon you during your transaction, you think you're going to be compromised, it's better for you to kill the witness and even kill your target if you have to than to jeopardize the mission. Like that was the mentality they were beating into these people. And
Okay.
if you're winning a source, if you're trying to win a source from the enemy, like flip someone, and you think that they're gonna go back and actually, tell on you, it's better for you to kill your source now than to jeopardize your mission.
This is
Like,
documented, or this is just the
yes.
holy
Yeah,
shit.
well, at least according to the people I'd listened to, and they said that it's in sources. I'm gonna have to pull it up to verify, because I want to put that as a slide on my thing, on my,
Hmm.
because something I'm finding easier when I'm producing Exhibit A is that I I can look in the camera and I can read the script, but I don't like me looking down and reading a script. So it's easier for me to just record it audibly, and that way I'm not self-conscious about me
Uh,
looking into a camera, and then I can just put the stuff I'm talking about on there anyway.
yeah,
Because I want to talk about George H. White. I don't want you to see me and my, green screen background. I want you to see George H. White, and I want you to see these people from MK Ultra.
yeah.
And so yeah, that's what I'm doing. I want to get that document on there. So I mean, I'm not going to talk about everything that I'm going to talk about on this episode here, but eventually World War II ends and he gets sent back to America, except now he gets sent back to the Federal Bureau of Narcotics with all this years and experience of spycraft that he's been killing Nazis, he's been like hooking up with exotic, prostitutes and actresses all over Eastern Europe during the war. He's had a crazy life. Well, now he brings that back to the FBN, and he's still just the problem child kind of screw up whenever they're like, oh, George is back. Like, let's send him back there to shake down some heroin dealers. Try not to shoot anyone, George. Well, instead, he goes back to just causing as much trouble as he can. Like he proceeds to start shooting people and shaking people down. Um, Something he picked up from the OSS was what they called liquid THC, and it was like briefly. The idea was that it was a THC concentrate, but they put a lot of like other chemical shit in it, like horse tranquilizer and like trace amounts of I mean, it was before LSD, but like precursors to true serum that they had. Something he learned from the OSS was dosing his informants to try to get them to talk. And so when he came back to the FBN, he had this stuff, liquid THC, which he knew the recipe for, and filled up with a syringe, a pack full of cigarettes, and had one of his mafia contacts, one of his local drug dealers that he used to shake down, have him come over and got him high as a kite on this super concentrated THC mixed with tranquilizer and all this other stuff. Um, well, to his surprise, the guy started talking about stuff that he knew he shouldn't have been talking about, like where he's taking his boss, how his boss is moving stuff in and out of the city. He's like volunteers to do hits for the guy. He's like, George, if you want me to off anyone for you, I'd do that for you, George. Like starts talking real loosey goosey. Um, does that fills out the form or like documents documents a report, like submits a report to his HQ saying, "Hey, this is what I did with great success. I dosed Henry Luciano, whatever, and with this liquid THC." And he told me about all of his sources, told me about his boss, told me about his boss's girlfriends, and yada yada. And they didn't really tell him to not do it. They're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, keep doing your thing." Didn't pay him any mind. Well, at this time, like post World War II, the CIA had began, except it had began in secret. Like it wasn't put out. It wasn't. it wasn't in the movies and it wasn't in everything. It was a secret agency that had been started by the people who were in charge of OSS. It was kind of one day it was OSS, next day CIA. Except most of the people that were in the OSS before, when they got shit back to wherever they came from, they didn't know that the CIA had started. They kind of just wanted to start with a small group and build out from there. Same leadership, but they wanted to start their own thing. Um, well, I don't know if we've talked about it too much on here, but it's something that a lot of people have heard of. Have you ever heard of Operation Paperclip? It was where the
I don't know what it is, but I've heard the term.
Okay. Operation Paperclip was something that was going on at the same time. It was one of the OSS's last missions during World War II. And that was before the fall. Like they knew they were going to come in, and all the Nazi scientists and generals thought they were all going to be hanged and shot because most of them ended up, they were hanged and or shot in the Nuremberg trials. So the OSS was sent in specifically to um, bring back their rocket scientists, everyone that the U.S. wanted that were useful. The rocket scientists, their nuclear scientists, their a lot of their psychologists, their drug scientists, so their psychiatry or I'm saying the wrong word, but their chemistry, like their chemists, a lot of those types of people, the U.S. sent in on the OSS to bring back. So and what we're talking about, and what we're who we're talking about is Nazi officers. Like these were
Okay.
Nazi officers that were they just happened to be German scientists, and the U.S. said, no, we don't want them to go to trial. Let's go in there and scoop them out before the cavalry rolls in. So whenever the cavalry does roll in, we got these people, and that's a true story. It's Operation Paperclip. That's how a lot of the CIA leadership came from there. That's how NASA was started, famously. There's been movies. Red October was, or not Red October. Anyway, about the Nazi scientist that came from Germany and started Werner von Braun. Yeah, I want to say him. Started NASA.
Now were they German scientists or were they Nazi? Like
Both.
they
They
were
were
part of the Nazi party.
Yeah, include one of the guy I forget his name, but he was part of like media. He was part of like their propaganda wing that we brought over there. He was specifically an SS officer. Like they're ultra violent, ultra like if Donald Trump were to militarize a branch of MAGA, that's what the SS was in Nazi Germany.
Okay.
Like the Fuhrer's personal extra crazies. And that was a propaganda guy that we brought over here in Operation Paperclip. Excuse me. But so what I was getting at is during the same time there was a German scientist that was brought over. I think his name was Hildrig. I'll have it better in my episode. But he was a German chemist, and he told the Allies, like whenever they rounded him up and they said, basically, how are you useful? How are you worth us saving? He said, well, I know that Germany's been working on our own truth serum, and we know that you guys have been working on a truth serum. We've got our own version of truth serum. And what he ended up bringing over was the very early version of LSD, and it was by Hoffman, the Swiss whatever scientist. Well, at the very end of World War II, there were scientists that were basically their true serum was the very early versions of LSD, and so there is this German scientist who says, "Hey, I know how to make this true serum that's a lot better than the liquid THC you guys are using." He gets brought over into the new super secret CIA to work on this true serum. Well, he's told you need to build your own department. You need to find people to work for you, like go out and recruit. And the main stack of people that they give him to look for, like the folders, they're like, you can look through these people, are former OSS agents. They're like, start here. We know they're good. Um, he's going through these files and he finds George White, this cowboy, who literally kills people multiple times. He's very comfortable drugging people. Um, he gets he gets recruited by the CIA. He's like, hey, you're with us now. So he goes narcotics, OSS, back to narcotics, and now into the CIA. He's brought in, and he immediately starts complaining about the FBN's rules that they had him. They're like, "Man, we were handcuffed back in the FBN," and the new CIA specifically tells him, "Don't worry, we don't have any of those rules here.
Okay.
Like you felt handcuffed by the rules you had back there.
Those rules being just don't kill as many people.
To stop killing so many people.
Try to slow down.
Yeah, slow down on the
Man, you
kill.
guys are squares.
Yeah, yeah."
Cramping my style.
Yeah, so they unshackle him from those burdensome rules in the new CIA, and his first mission isn't in the new Italy, isn't in Eastern Germany, it's not even in Russia. His first mission is in New York City, where he is tasked with further developing ways of implementing this truth serum onto crowds and onto targets and like what you can get people to do. So he immediately this there's some other things going on at the same time that I'm going to talk about, but the even during World War II, the federal government and the OSS had established working relationships with criminal organizations, like including the Italian mafia. One guy specifically who's pretty famous was this guy, Lucky Luciano. Charles Lucky Luciano was an Italian street guy from New York City who got picked up in the late 30s for a prostitution ring, but was willing to play ball and like talk down his sentence, but was still in prison for a while. But set the standard of basically willing to talk to the feds. So he gets sent to prison, but the feds remember they can talk to him. This comes up because during World War II, they were afraid, the US government was afraid that German war U-boats were going to sink boats going in and out of New York Harbor. And like there was a for real, because there was German U-boats in the Atlantic, and the US was afraid that they were going to start sinking ships going in and out of there. Well, during the same time, the Union, the longshoremen, are rioting on the docks. They're like over unfair wages, over, this or that. They want whatever it was. They were rioting for their workmen's rights back then. Well, the unions were all controlled by the mafia. Like
Mhm.
notoriously, the unions were controlled, they're corrupt and controlled by the mafia. So the version of the FBI, it was the FBI, goes to Lucky because they already have a working relationship with him and they know that he controls parts of this New York mafia. They say, hey, if you can get the union, if you can get your unions to stop rioting, we'll be able to work with you. Like they take like literally like 10 years off of his sentence. He gets him to do, they get him to do that. And they say, hey, they go back to him after that. They're like, hey, if you can talk to your family back in Sicily and work with the U.S. Navy about an amphibious landing, we'll commute your entire sentence. Because he was in prison for like 30 years and had 10 years knocked off the first time. They went back to him and said, hey, if you can work with your cousins back in Sicily, we'll commute your entire sentence. So he does, and they do. They let him go. So that's the OSS. They already, one of the tricks that they have up their sleeves, one of the things that they've learned at this point is that they're cool with killing people, they're cool with drugging people, and they have a working relationship with criminal organizations. Like before there is a CIA, this is already baked into the CIA. And so that's part of the backdrop too. This could even be part of Exhibit A. Stop me at any time if you got any questions about anything.
No,
But
it's fascinating.
so so George White, he's back with the CIA and he's partnered up with this former Nazi scientist who's developing this truth serum, and the scientist has deployed him in New York City. He's like, hey, go work with all your people you used to dose with THC and start dosing them with this. And they gave him like specific jobs to do, like talking them into cheating on their wives, talking them into buying prostitutes, talking them into leaving one gang and joining another. and would do all this through, it wasn't just the drugs, it was kind of the craft. They were like
Hmm.
building leverage on them, this or that. But all the big headway came, he was dosing everyone with LSD. Like everyone who came in to talk was just getting wrecked on LSD. And they're telling him his social security number, talking about like telling them embarrassing things about themselves, like said getting them to cheat on their wives. Um, the next step was, this is kind of the last where I left off when I was listening to this today. I was researching it today. Was he was sent on a subway in New York City and wanted to test a new aerosol application of LSD on the subway. So he did, and in his report, he was complaining how he got himself and had to sit down for like a couple of hours on a bench seat before he could walk out of the subway, walk out of the station. So it was on a New York subway. There's grandmas, there's kids, there's people going back and forth to work, there's policemen, judges. Let's loose an aerosol can. Psst. And back then people are kind of buttoned up, you know what I mean? They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what's this rascal doing? Oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well, he didn't do anything to me." And then get just wrecked on LSD. So start laying in the floor and rolling around.
Yeah. So I always thought that LSD was a uh what's it called? Psychedelic. Like
Psychedelic, yeah. I guess
so
they were implementing it in a dose to where it became almost like a dissociative.
okay. Because I'm thinking, like, if you gave me a cigarette
Uh-huh.
and I start seeing all kinds of patterns and like
But this is
you
the
know
40s. They don't know the 40s and at this point early 50s. This is like 52 when he's doing this.
even in the 50s, you should be like, I'm seeing some heavenly geometry. What's
Right.
up? Something doesn't.
Or at
Let me
least
let me
I
have another
shouldn't
one.
be I if I'm a mafia guy, I shouldn't be telling this guy what my boss is doing. Like I know they kill people for that.
Yeah. Like I guess I just didn't realize that LSD did that.
So that's how they developed it. That it was first implemented as, so this is all going into something that, so it's funny because this was a 2 minute section when I was talking about MK Ultra. I had like 2 minutes of talking about Operation Midnight Climax. We've talked about that. Do you remember what that is before?
Yeah.
Operation Midnight Climax was a brothel set up in California headed by a CIA agent, George White.
Okay.
George White would find these dudes off the street and like chum them up, make them pals at the bar. People who were not going to buy prostitutes, like guys, they were just guys. He, he would dose them like with LSD. It wasn't just LSD, but it was a lot of very heavy psychedelics. They were started to use ketamine back then. There was mescaline and ayahuasca that they were bringing in from South America. Like they were trying it all. They literally, like part of this research, they gave so much LSD to liquid, whatever, like the drug, to an elephant that it killed the
Holy shit.
elephant. Like how much LSD does it take to kill an elephant? They found out
That much.
that much. So it was just the Wild West. Um, this guy was making friends with guys at bars, talking them into going to brothels, and like he was like, "Hey, I got this gal named Sally for $20. She'll really take care of you. You know what I mean? She'll make you forget all about your problems." And he's this guy who thinks he's had a whiskey, is out of his mind. Stumbles over to meet Sally. Um, divulges all his life's information to him. They start building this pattern of how to do this. Well, then they start targeting college students and officers, like U.S. congressmen and stuff, people who they suspect of being communist. They start doing the same thing to them. They start building Operation Midnight Climax. Absolutely happened, and I'm literally laying out the receipts on every single step how the CIA has in their DNA working with criminal organizations, drugging people, um, whatever, killing people. They also have using sex and drugs as blackmail for political purposes.
Hmm.
Early on. It's called Operation Midnight Climax. They were hunting down commies.
I feel like if you pay attention, you might see that come back up again.
You know, I feel like maybe, they say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I, I think this is just the same old song because obviously, I mean, we're hinting at, I don't know how long but we've been kind of rocking. Um, like Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, what it's highly theorized, and I think there's lots of circumstantial evidence to suggest that he was an asset of multiple intelligence agencies, and he was doing what the CIA was doing with Operation Midnight Climax. He was just doing it on a bigger scale.
Mhm.
He was getting people in an environment where and probably in a condition, there probably was drugs. He was probably
Guaranteed.
drugging.
Guaranteed. And they probably, I'm guessing they probably weren't even being drugged. They were participating. Like it was, I'll bet you it was probably just part of, like
Dude,
that's part of the
if you're
party.
a millionaire congressman and there's a plate with a little booger sugar coming across,
Shoot.
shit.
I don't care what you are. You could be, manager at Walmart.
You
And
could be Billy Graham, my friend.
yeah, you see that little tray come by.
Well, I might as well see what it smells like.
Wonder what that smells like.
See what all the fuss is about. Yeah, you're getting massages, your whatever your pleasure
Well, yeah,
was.
yeah. And we've talked before about how that level of wealth and power,
Uh-huh.
it's just a different ball game. Like
Yeah.
it's a lifestyle that we just wouldn't even dream of, like couldn't conceive of. And I'm certain that drugs were a part of that.
Yeah, many of the victims I've heard mention this. I heard about this on the Martyr Made podcast, and that guy who produces it, his name escapes me. That's not good. But most of the victims were saying how Jeffrey Epstein thought about basically everyone as less than human. Like he saw the world as beneath him. Like he looked down his nose at literally. That's why he was able to do some of these monstrous things in his mind. At least they thought this, because he wasn't doing it to a person. He was doing it to a dumb, like less than human thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you combine that, which is, we've seen that. I mean, that's racism. That's just another form of racism or whatever bigotry, whatever to the nth degree of like I'm literally above. This person is below me as a species, as an
Mm-hmm.
animal. We've seen that before. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
far stretch to see that. If you combine that with, at this point, decades and decades of technology and techniques and tactics from the CIA
Yeah.
on how to
And
drug people.
because think about how it would have intelligence and technology, especially, just
Yeah.
grows incrementally.
Yeah.
So think about if that's what they were doing in the 30s, can't even
Yeah.
imagine what they're doing in the 2000s.
Right. And like I said, they had to. What happened during the 60s is JFK, excuse me, JFK cracked down on the CIA and on all the intelligence networks, but specifically the CIA, because he thought they were out of control. And in a way, I mean, in lots of ways, they were. They were killing elephants with LSD. They were dosing CIA or American citizens unbeknownst. I mean, they were out
Can
of their
you
fucking mind.
can you just imagine if you're the supervisor and you're just taking a stroll through the offices and you're like, "Hey, how'd that elephant die?" Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We're just testing out some ideas, some
Or like
theories.
imagine it's investigations. Like you're just in the morning, the sergeant's walking through and
Yeah,
he
he's got
goes
his coffee
by.
cup.
He slaps Detective Schmuckatelli on the shoulder and says, "Hey Schmuck, what you working on this week?" "Oh, boss, one of the things we're doing is we're drugging fellas, bringing them into brothels and getting them to spill their guts, working to see if we can do that to commies. Good job, Schmuck."
Good work. I'll see you at breakfast.
See you at breakfast, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and so, and I wanted to talk to you about this too. I was thinking about this, because I think we've seen this, you and I, but imagine how like a policy or even a culture in a work environment, like the culture of investigations, can hinge so much on the personality of one or two alphas or like big
Yeah,
personalities in that office.
for sure.
Like, if he doesn't like this person, I don't like that person. If he likes his coffee this way, I like my coffee that way.
Hmm.
There's always been, like I said, and I'm just comparing things to our little world that we saw. There's always been like these personalities that shift the entire culture of definitely of departments, but could be a whole agency. You know what I mean? From the top down. I feel like George White is a guy like that. Like maybe because of like how the story is, there can never be a movie that really depicts his life. And like no one's like there hasn't been he just hasn't come up in the zeitgeist. But if you look into Operation Midnight Climax, and I'm going to be talking about this on the pod, but you're going to come into a guy named George White, and I think George White was the kind of guy where I don't think you have the CIA the way it is today without this one guy. Like,
Mm,
there's definitely a Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office just fine without a Clayton Blackwood. They might not have some cool stories, but they got plenty of other cool stories. You know what I mean?
right.
This, I don't think today there is a CIA without this one specific guy, George White.
Mm. Is he still alive?
No, no, he's not.
Okay.
Um, have you seen anyone like I mean like what are the personalities that come to mind about like how an entire department can hang on this one person?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is a good friend of mine, not so much of yours, uh,
I like
John.
him. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's just one of those guys that if he says something, most people are going to agree.
I
Uh,
saw that.
and to be honest, most of the time, if he says something, he's right.
Yeah.
In my experience, um, what really comes to mind though is that book, Ordinary Men.
Okay.
It was about I think it might have been German. I think they might have been Russian. It was a police battalion, and it must have been German. And they were like reserve police officers, and they were
Yeah.
recruited for the war effort. And essentially, they carried out just some horrific torture.
Yeah.
And the point of the book is that they were just normal people, and they didn't say no, and
Right.
so they just followed whatever their sergeant, boss, whatever he was, whatever he ordered them to do, they just did it without question. And it's yeah, that's what comes to mind when I think of that. How somebody can just
Yeah.
run an entire group
I
of
mean,
people.
think of a new task force because this is literally what it was. But say you're a third shift deputy, you've already you know how to find a local shithead. You know how to find a local expired tag in the on the south part of Wichita. You know what I mean? You
Yep.
know how, just enough to be dangerous. And then there's a new task force, and they're looking for guys that are maybe a little disgruntled with their chain of command, guys who maybe go a little bit longer on their pursuits
Yeah.
before calling it off. They're looking for guys like that. And so you go to this new task force. I mean, this is literally the environment that White found himself in because he wanted to be like we know cops like this. I don't think he started off as an evil
Yeah.
mad scientist that he became. He wanted
Yeah.
to be a good cop. He wanted to go and get he wanted to get into the action. He wanted to find a drug dealer and get into a scuffle and get into the stuff was. Um, but there were no rules and there was literally no guidance.
Mm.
And that's why he ended up justifying in his mind drugging his contact, drugging his local snitch to get him to really spill the beans.
Think, imagine just for a second, like if there, even just the work we did, if there were no rules,
Imagine.
like
Imagine if that option was on the table.
like
You can give
oh,
someone a cigarette.
or I can't. You say I can't search your car?
Yeah.
Watch this. Watch this. Yeah, looks
Yeah.
looks like I can. Or
Oh, and it looks like I found this kilo of cocaine in your trunk, homie.
which, to be real honest, that probably happens all over the world.
For sure.
And it probably happens. I don't want to say it. Do you think it
I've
happens in
heard of
America?
it. I mean, I've definitely heard of it. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't.
probably inner city, probably like small amounts. I can't imagine. Maybe I'm
Well,
wrong.
have you
Maybe
ever
it's
heard of a possible scenario happen where someone was like taking suspect cell phones and looking through their cell phones without warrants, and how kind of just operating that way for a while until it
oh
finally caught up to them?
well, that was the normal course of business back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So you
and
saw that? Did you see that?
oh, I did that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the because back then it was you could search for fruits and instrumentalities of a crime,
That's right.
and it was just it was the common practice.
So you pick someone up for suspended license. Let me see that cell phone.
Who's who's this? Who's this talking about the plug,
Yeah.
or uh, what I used to really I didn't go so much off the messages, but I would scroll through and just see who they were contacts with, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
so you're
Dang.
connected to Ghost, and you're connected to whoever Animal, and you're connected whatever, and just kind of build out the network from there. We did go through text messages, but it just wasn't the
See, this is so crazy because that was not super long before I came to patrol. Like that was just a
I don't
matter of
know.
years before I
Yeah,
came. And when I came to patrol, that was so far. They're like, they were literally telling us scary stories of doing that. They're like, if you even think about looking in their messages without a warrant, like the whole thing's gonna go, the whole case is gonna go away, and you'll be investigated, and you violated their Fourth Amendment right. And like we were so scared off from that from the academy to where, like you saying that to me, it really shocked me. But I was like,
really.
oh man, I guess I can see that. I mean, it wasn't too far
Yeah.
ahead of me before, when
I
that
mean
was a
that
thing.
that was also the same time that you might get arrested for not changing the address on your driver's license. And I might go ahead and search incident to arrest.
Ooh, son.
Looks
Yeah,
like this insurance is expired. Why don't you go ahead and step out of the car for me?
man. Do you remember the time I was in the squad room, and he's retired now, but Jeff was not big Jeff, but he's retired guy
Yeah.
was in the squad room
Old
with
Bronson.
you. Uh-huh. And I was talking with someone, but they're like, you can't pull someone over for going 1 mile over the speed limit. And I said, no, but you can for going for if they're going two. And he looked up and he was like, you pull people over for, or I said something like five. I told someone, I was like, I'll pull them over for going five. And he looked up at me, he was like, you pull them over for going five? I was like, I'll pull them over for going two. He starts dying laughing. He's like, I was like, no, 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 LT, it's not just anyone I'd pull over for going to. I'd have to be looking for a reason to pull them over.
But you could. I mean, that's
Yeah,
legitimate because if
it
the speed limit was 62, then it would be 62, but it's not. It's 60.
it's 60.
And 62 is over 60.
That's right. And my radar has a margin of error plus or minus one. So if it's two over, there's no question. You were going over the speed limit. And there's not a
Now,
buffer zone in the
now
statute.
if from there you don't want to prosecute it,
Sure.
or you don't want to whatever, but that's not an illegal or unlawful stop.
Right. Um, I want to say there, gosh dang it, I can't remember, but there was a recent Kansas Supreme Court case law that was interdiction related, and it was one of the last cases. I can talk about this. You know, my buddy Eric, that was a judge.
Yeah.
I don't want to. He recently retired as the chief justice, but which means all it means is that now he's taking a retiree schedule. He's still seeing cases. It's just on a lower volume now.
Okay.
But I think it was he made the decision on this. It was actually federal, but it was something along the lines of it wasn't this exactly, but it was something along the lines of checking them for warrants while you're checking them, while you're checking the record, or while
Oh,
you're doing this, or like if and going past, like once you get the return on their driving record, at that
yeah.
point, if you're still waiting on a warrant return, then essentially you're fit. It wasn't that exactly, but it was along those lines.
Yeah.
And
Would it have been like wait if you call the intelligence center and you're
yes,
waiting on a return from that, you can't wait because you've already got
so I think that specifically was the case.
okay.
Or yeah, something very close to that, if not that exactly. And yeah, he determined that it was that he held him too long and
Yeah.
throughout the case. And I was just so passionate, like, man, I think that guy was 100% right with what he did, obviously, because that's how I did it,
Yeah.
and I'm just looking at it from that perspective.
That's such a weird position to be in right now, and I'm so conflicted with what I think about that
Yeah,
because as if you actually want to prohibit drugs, crime,
right.
then you've got to let this guy do his job.
Yeah.
Like he's literally just doing his job.
Because let me tell you something, this George White guy was pretty effective when he was beating people up and shooting them and drugging
Yeah,
them.
yeah, 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 yeah. But like he didn't the case that you're talking about, at least from what I've just now heard, he didn't violate anybody's rights.
Right.
He's
Definitely
just
not to his not like I guarantee you he didn't willfully do that.
yeah.
He wasn't thinking, "Oh, I'm screwing this guy over right now."
Now where it gets tricky for me is now I'm a lot more interested in civil rights and I'm a lot less interested in enforcing drug laws.
Yeah.
So I'm conflicted, but that's
Especially because nowadays we find ourselves in a time where people's civil liberties, at least they feel like their civil liberties are getting restricted. I mean, you got people here on visas that are getting deported for going to protest. And you got families that have been here for decades, part of the society, have been paying taxes, get deported because they didn't cross the port of entry when they came in 30 years ago, and they stayed here because I mean, and they've been a citizen. They're more citizen than at least 50% of the population here, or whatever.
yeah,
People that are
yeah.
younger than them, they've raised their families here. They're literally going to church.
I think that it's I don't know, man. Like and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about some of the new stuff that's come out with Charlie Kirk's with
Yeah,
the shooting.
well, we got
But
time.
like even just that event, like regardless of who is responsible for it, I can really see possibly in our lifetime, but certainly in our kids' lifetime, that freedom of speech and the Bill of Rights and life as we know it made it's not going to be the same.
So they're already passing laws, and we already see other versions of this in Europe and England.
Hmm.
But like here in America, in the US of A, they're passing laws of criticizing Israel is considered hate speech. They've passed that in definitions in Congress. So like the language that Congress is allowed to use on the floor, they passed a law that says if criticism of Israel on the floor on Congress is considered hate speech.
Just Israel?
Yes, Israel specifically. It's an anti-Semitic law. There's over 50%, I want to say it's like 30 over 30 states in the US already today have anti-Israel what is it called? Not protest, but when you boycott, anti-Israel boycotting laws in the United States. So not federally, but like Texas has done this. I think Oklahoma has done this. I think Kansas hasn't. I think the lady Democrat governor is protecting y'all. But they've a lot of red states, Alabama, I'm sure has done it. I know Georgia did, have passed laws to where companies are not allowed to specifically target Israeli companies or Jewish companies to boycott. They're not saying you're not allowed to, like, you still have freedom of choice on who you partner with, but you're not allowed to boycott a company because it's Israeli.
Okay.
Like, there's already state laws in over 30 states today.
Now, but that actually, the way you say that, that might actually be like, I don't think that you want to get to a point where you boycott a business because of where it's headquartered.
Well, maybe. Okay, I see what you're saying. And I think, at least from that, I see that because that's nice and that's the right thing.
Well, and it's also, it can really, and I'm not a big fan of slippery slope
Yeah,
theory, but that could really easily, I mean, that could quickly turn into less than human,
sure.
banning it or boycotting it because not because of the nation Israel, but because it's made by Jews, or you know what I mean? Like I could see how,
Well, hey, I don't have it all figured out. I think about I don't want anyone like you can't tell me why I can't choose someone. I'll like whatever the thing is you don't want me to choose it for. That's why I'll choose it.
yeah,
Like, oh
fuck you.
really? You don't want me to think? You don't want me to say that? I'm gonna say
Boom.
that right now. Um, so I see that as, and like I said, I'm not claiming I got it all figured out, but my libertarian instinct is to say that's an infringement on my freedom of speech, homie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I fall on
I,
that.
I guess so, man, it feels like there's a difference between you as an individual having the freedom to say what you want, to do what you want, support who you want, whatever, support whatever business you want. But as
Hey, it looks like
a,
the majority of states agree with you, by the way. So I'm not saying I'm right. Most people are agreeing with you.
well, good for them.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know.
It just makes me very suspicious. I mean the picture is this one specific country gets very
If
special protection,
yeah,
very special privileges. Why? Why isn't anyone asking that? And to ask that, see, they're going to say is racist. It
that's that's the thing is that you can, if in fact, if you take my line of thinking, the way I'm arguing for this, you would have to do the same for Kenya. You would have
right.
to do the same for
Even the countries you
the
don't like. Like what about
yeah,
Cuba? What about China
it's the
and Russia?
you can't just say, well, you can't criticize Israel. You can
Yeah,
criticize Russia. You can criticize the Ukraine, but don't, like, that's where you lose me.
for real.
Because if we're not protecting everybody, then it does look very, very suspicious. And the adage of the person that rules you is the person you can't criticize.
Yeah. For real. Like that's I've heard Tucker Carlson say this, and I don't know, he maybe takes this way too far sometimes, but he says that's the definition of a slave. Like a slave can't criticize their master. And like if there's a person that you can't criticize, that's your master and you're that person's slave.
They're at the very least in charge.
Yeah. Because I mean, theoretically, where does it stop? I this isn't at that level, but um I remember pulling over someone with a what was it? They had diplomatic immunity. Someone from like a Department of State from another country, and they pulled over and showed me their passport. And this guy was going crazy fast, like in a Lamborghini. And I pulled him over, and he was like very polite. He was like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm definitely going to slow down." I said, "Well, just to let you know, you're going to get a ticket." And he's like, "Excuse me, officer, I'm just going to let you know you can't give me a ticket." I'm like,
How did that go
"Excuse me."
over?
I was
Be
like,
advised.
I think I might have said, and I quote, "I sure the fuck can." And he's like, "Officer," he was like, Deputy, call your supervisor." I was like, "Wait right here." And so I go back to my patrol car, pull out my ticket book, And I decided to go ahead and call the LT that I think it was when this was when you were my sergeant. I don't think you were working this night, but I called the LT we had. And he was like, "Man, I hate to tell you this. He's right." I'm like, "Say what?" He was like, "You can't give him a ticket." And I'm like, "What?" And he just breaks it down for me. He's like, "Yeah, man, they got diplomatic immunity." He was like, "You could stop them from committing a crime if they're actively committing a crime." He was like, "But speeding tickets and like misdemeanors basically don't apply." And I was like, "Get out of here." So I brought this dude back. It was I think it was a Saudi passport. I brought this dude back his Saudi passport. I'm like, "Hey man, you're right." He was like, "I appreciate you, deputy." He was like, "I am gonna slow it down. I am gonna follow the law." He was like, "But I want you to like." He was respect. He was like, "Have a good night." I'm like, "Hey man, peace."
Yeah.
But that's how I imagine criticizing you know who is, because like the rule is literally rules that I can't even apply to other citizens. Like I can
So,
criticize you.
so I mean, and maybe this is a good, maybe it's not time for a segue, but it is a good segue. Is it, do you think that that's ultimately what led to, like, do you think that's what Charlie Kirk's death was about?
Man, so I think it's dangerous to make that assumption. Like for me to say, yeah, for me to confirm, yeah, is for me to make the assertment that Israel somehow had a hand in Charlie Kirk's murder. I think that's a dangerous assertion because I don't think there's enough evidence. I haven't seen enough evidence to say that. You know what I mean? Like we don't even know who shot Charlie Kirk.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's not this kid that they say it is in the news. It's not. There's a lot of pretty good evidence, and Candace Owens is doing a real good job about talking about that. There's a pretty famous journalist for. He's been in lots of publications, but Max Blumenthal released an article like 2 days after Charlie Kirk's assassination about documented pressure Charlie Kirk said he was under from his Jewish donors, specifically his Israeli contacts,
Hmm.
like people that were American citizens and Israeli citizens that were his big donors. He, excuse me, at least Candace Owens says that she has pretty much firsthand knowledge that 2 days before he was killed, said that he was going to part ways with all of his big Jewish donors because he felt like they were trying to dictate his speech and
Hmm.
like his criticism of Israel with their handling of Gaza or maybe their handling of the Iran deal because he was not in favor. That was when that Iran thing happened when the US attacked Iran on behalf of Israel. That was around the time that I first got a Twitter account. And we're on Twitter, Lawless Podcast.
Are we?
That's my Twitter handle. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, Lawless Podcast is on Twitter. I'll post links. It doesn't let me upload the videos directly to there, so I share YouTube links to all of our videos, and
Okay.
I'll repost things that I like to our to our YouTube or to our Twitter channel. Not Twitter, X, to our X
Oh, right,
channel.
right, right.
Um, that was around when that Iran thing kicked off. That was when I first got my thing. Um, I kind of didn't like Charlie Kirk because I felt like he was really sticking up for Israel starting a war that I felt like was unprovoked and was dangerous to get. I felt like they started that anticipating that the U.S. was gonna come in to bail them out.
Yeah.
And I said that early on, and people said they're like, "You think Israel needs the U.S. to do its work? Israel doesn't need it." And then, literally a week later, the U.S. had to come in. They said that they didn't have the types of bombs that could do it. Only the U.S. Had the types of bombs.
We need
And
your bomb. Your bombs are the best bombs. Please give
yeah,
us your bombs.
so to finish this shit that Israel started, the U.S. went in there and I think committed a war crime. I don't think the president had the power to do that. I mean, in that the war power clause that the president has, it can only be used in an act of self-defense. And I don't think Iran was. I mean, and lots. It's not just me. Lots of smarter people than me agree that I don't think Iran was a threat, including Tulsi Gabbard. the director of
Because
national intelligence.
and what you're talking about is he did that without consulting Congress, right?
He did it without consulting Congress. So how by the Constitution, how war is supposed to be declared by the Congress unless there's an emergency. And so, like, if in the matter of national defense, if there was an imminent threat by Iran or Iraq, in that instance, the president has in the war power clause to do an act of war on another country. Whatever, I'm kind of getting off in the weeds on that, but around that time, Charlie Kirk was super pro Israel on that, and I didn't like him on that. Um, Candace Owens is saying that he never wanted to be super pro Israel, but felt like he was forced to because of his donors and because
Mm.
of people that he wanted to make happy, but was becoming more displeased with Israel's handling of Gaza, like literally sniping kids. You hear about it, doesn't even make the news anymore, of them shooting kids, running to food piles, and then blowing up the last church that's there, they target. And even after it gets world attention, they do it again, almost like to rub your nose in it. Like they know there's no terrorists there. It's only women and children hiding in this one church and priest, and they still attack it. Like that's
Did that
just
happen?
happened. Yeah, it sure did. It was the last Christian church in Gaza, and that I mean what I just described happened.
Mm.
They knew there was no Hamas fighters there. It was women and children, orphans and priests in this church. And they hit it. Then, like, media influencers started talking about it and they did it again, literally to rub your nose in it. And yeah, they said that Charlie Kirk was going to wanted to separate from his donors about that. At least that's from Candace Owens, who like went on these tours with Charlie Kirk, like had
Hmm.
known him for years. Um, if that's true, I don't think that's evidence. Like that definitely makes you suspect or be sketchy, you know?
Well, yeah, but I think that and this is one of the issues I think with Israel is distinguishing the nation
Right.
from actors.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that it probably was Benjamin Netanyahu who who called who put out the order.
Right.
But
But did you see he felt the need to deny it
yeah,
twice?
yeah, I did.
Twice he's felt the need to come out. When does a president feel the need to deny assassination of a podcaster?
Yeah. But you get what I'm saying. Like what who know I don't know. I don't know who was behind it, but it does very
Right.
much seem like it wasn't that kid. And so then that
Right.
makes you wonder, well, what the fuck is going on here? Is it is it that they just it could be that they're inept. That could certainly be it.
Yeah.
It could be that they just needed to find someone, like they needed to get this thing under control.
They needed to prove I mean, like I think almost the most generous explanation is what I think you're leading to is that they needed to say, "Hey, we got someone," and so they just threw enough mud at the wall to make it stick.
But even with that, and I made this comment in our text, like you just in this day and age, you can't get away with stuff like that anymore.
No, not when Candace Owens exists, bud.
Or the internet,
Yeah,
or cameras, like that. So I don't know how they really thought they could get whoever it is, if they if in fact they now I'm talking about law enforcement, if they really thought that this was the guy, or rather if they thought that they were just going to pick somebody up and satisfy everybody, it's not, it's not going to stick,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Unless they're setting them up, unless
Because
there's a setup.
I mean, we kind of saw that in real time. That's one of the things that you'll hear people say about Jeffrey Epstein is Jeffrey Epstein was living like it was the 90s, living like it was the 80s and the 90s into the 2000s. And unfortunately, the 2000s had internet, had emails,
uh
and that's one of the things that led to Jeffrey Epstein's demise was emails.
yeah,
Um,
because they're no longer, when you have to mail wanted posters,
yeah,
you're some shit's going to fall through the cracks.
exactly. Well, um, it seems like that's what we're witnessing with like the propaganda and like maybe they've always lied to us like this.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at with the text I sent the other day is that if they set this dude up, and it
Yeah.
sure looks like somebody did,
It seems like this Tyler guy is not the shooter. There's
and
just
it's
so much evidence.
and what's really interesting to me is how like I believed that he had made a confession.
Right. I thought he did too. I think I might have
And
said that on the last podcast.
and so I wonder how many people are in prison that the majority like and I guess it doesn't matter what I think, but
Oh, dude,
the
yeah.
majority of the population says, "Oh yeah, he did it. He admitted it." And in reality, they're saying, "I didn't do it. I'm innocent." But we just never give them another look because it's
I
wrapped up.
mean,
We're good.
Arizona versus Miranda, right? Isn't that the kind of the same thing? What happened? That's what the whole Miranda rights is based on. Like you can make anyone say whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what? I don't remember why I was thinking about this. There's a documentary that you really should watch if you haven't called the West Memphis. No, what is it? It's about the West Memphis Three. It is par something lost, Paradise Lost, Innocence Lost. Check out the West Memphis Three murders,
Okay.
and and essentially what it was there was a group of kids in West Memphis, Arkansas. I think it was the early '90s, were brutally murdered, sexually assaulted, like just some pretty horrific stuff. And the police pinned it on these three goth kids, like they're real into heavy metal,
Yeah.
Metallica, they're wearing the Slayer shirts and stuff. And they one
Was
of
this
them had
during like the Satanic Panic?
yep, uh,
Yeah.
and one of them had a very low IQ. He was I think clinically retarded,
Yeah.
and they interrogated him for like I think it was over 24 hours, but they interrogated him
Jeez.
for a ridiculous amount of time, and he confessed.
Yeah.
And they all were on death row. It's a really fascinating story. They've since been released,
Good.
but something about this case, I don't remember what it was. It made me think of that the other day. Um, I think maybe it was just the police involvement because in that story, you find out that one of the kids' dads is an informant for the police, and there's all kinds of evidence to suggest that he was involved or that he may have even been the one, but it was just like the evidence was overlooked or it wasn't collected, and the whole investigation was just a sham.
Huh.
But they found their suspects, and then they just quit looking and they tried to do everything they can just to throw it against the wall and see what sticks.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it works. I was gonna tell you, I don't know if you've gotten this. I've gotten a couple different requests. The podcast, Lawless podcast with Justin and Clayton, has gotten a couple requests to do cold case investigations.
No,
True crime.
no,
True
we
crime.
haven't. Have we
Yeah,
really?
for real. Yeah, for real. There's a couple. I think one of them is gonna be listening to this. One lady. But every time I saw her at our neighborhood pool, or whenever the kids were like at the park or whatever, she'd be like, "Have you heard about this woman that was abducted in Union County? Oh my God, the whole neighborhood talked about it, and they know it was the Jim from back behind the bar. Jim, everybody talks about Jim, and would tell me these stories, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, because I'm starting to lead with this more of whenever people ask me what I do, I'll say I'm a podcaster. And I'll say I do a couple other things, but I'm a podcaster.
Yeah.
And so she knows I'm a podcaster, and she's watched our show. She's one of the fans of our show. And every time I see her, she's like, "Oh my God, do you need to talk about Becky from Union County?" I'm like, "That's kind of not really what we talk about, but I mean, we can."
But we can.
Yeah. Except I don't have. I was never in investigations. The only thing I know how to talk about is interdiction or patrol cop stuff.
Yeah, but that is investigations. That's
Yeah.
that's fundamental investigations. I would say if if you had if you had to do away with positions in the department, I would say that probably investigations would be like just have ever have everybody on patrol and they can investigate their own cases.
Yeah.
In fact, it makes a lot more sense for you as the deputy taking the burglary report to investigate this yourself with what you see rather than you write up a report, you give it to a detective, and then the next morning the detective gets it and then he's reading your report and then he's like, well, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But if you are the case detective as the
Right.
deputy, well that
You know, in my experience, the only thing that was missing, and I found this like toward the tail end in the last couple of years when I started going to interdiction is when I discovered this. But affidavits.
yeah.
A patrol deputy never wrote at least I never wrote an affidavit when I was a patrol deputy. I've written, I guess, arrest affidavits, but not the affidavit for the case to bring it
Yeah.
to the DA. And I think back during COVID-19, when we had the case desk or the desk case position in the squad room,
That
is
was
when
so terrible.
I first got introduced to writing some affidavits because then we started sharing misdemeanor warrants with warrants, and we're like, yeah, there was like some affidavit training then, and then when we got into interdiction, there was instances where I got to write my own affidavit to bring it to the DA,
Hmm.
and I think, yeah, that was the missing link. Like, because I have no one to tear apart my case if I'm the one who wrote my
Yeah.
case.
Well, there's a sense on the patrol level that I'm going to write this case up and I'm going to send it in the pouch, whatever. And then somebody's like, the magic is going to happen. It's
Hmm.
going to go from here to where somebody who can get some stuff done is going to take a look at it.
Yeah.
But that's just not what happens. What happens is it leaves here and may some cases get investigated. I'm not saying that everything
Yeah. I
gets
mean, but
dumped.
like we said, it depends whose name's on the case
Yeah,
and it depends who receives it.
and if if you're a detective, you're not there. You don't have the firsthand knowledge.
Right.
You don't have the relationship even with the victim.
Well, and I've experienced this and not to, whatever. Sometimes a detective's understanding of case law is wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's not going to help you. I learned it doesn't help whenever you point out their knowledge is wrong. At least
yeah.
not in the way that I did it.
Well, because if you take the personality of a regular cop,
Yeah.
right, and then you add about 50 pounds and you give them a title of detective, like they just they're not going to leave. You have people that get up there and they forget what it's like to be a cop.
Yeah.
They forget what it's like to stop a car and not really like, no, I didn't know everything that I was going to find out, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't have this information that you have. I
Right.
had this information, but they forget that. They're like, well, why didn't
It
you ask this question? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, why
even
didn't you why weren't you out there working?
exactly.
Maybe you should have stopped the car.
I was gonna say even because I've known the good ones. You know what I mean? The good ones. I don't know if there's any bad ones, but I've known like people who I thought were good at their job that were detectives, and even the best well-intentioned ones, I think of themselves as above a patrol deputy.
For
Like
sure. 100%.
I already know everything about patrol. Like literally I have nothing left to learn about patrol. So whenever a patrol deputy brings something to me, and like I said, this is the best, these were the good ones. The cool
Hmm.
ones, I think still felt like this. Whenever I would challenge you like, "Hey, just so you know, I can pull people out of their car based on based on this case law, or I can detain based on this whatever." Um, they it's an immediate brick wall, especially if you I don't know, there were better ways of delivering it, but like it was hard for any detective, I felt like, like I said, even the good ones, to hear that there's a deputy who's been on far less than you, who, has does not have the cool tattoos and the earrings, doesn't have that experience. He's not going to know, especially about drug law,
Right.
about search and seizure. He's
Right.
not going to know more about me. And that's a very understandable assumption. Like I get why you would assume that.
Except that, and this just goes, I love the police. I still do. I love cops. But
Yeah.
it goes hand in hand with just the cop personality of I don't need to train because I'm good. I don't need to go to the range because I'm good. I don't need to stay
Yeah.
on top of case law because I'm good. I know stuff. Don't worry
Yeah.
about me. And that's just, I mean, that's just the attitude from the day you graduate the academy. For most people, it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shouldn't
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
But for most officers, that's the perception.
Well, and that's not even, I would say that's not even the most dangerous mindset, because that's probably the normal baseline mindset, what you just said. But that's not the most dangerous mindset that's also very common in a lot of patrol rooms that you'll see in all kinds of agencies. But the mindset of this is just how we do it, or this is how we've always done it this way, it seems like a cliche now. Like when you hear that, you think, of course, no one ever operates that way. But that's how well, I wouldn't say most, but a
Yeah.
good percentage of your well-meaning deputy, DUI chaser, ticket writer is going to say, "Oh no, I can go ahead and cuff you now," like without really knowing the
Hmm.
steps you need to get there, because their FTD told them if
Yeah.
you
Oh,
admit
it's officer safety.
officer safety, exactly. A search incident to arrest,
Right.
incident to any arrest,
Yeah. The fruits and instrumentalities of a crime.
a crime.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so something else that I wanted to hit on. Um, what's up with the big meeting of the generals? Did
it's
that go over as terrible as it seems?
it seemed so. We talked about this. The theory was there was two competing theories that I had heard. It was that either it's going to be like a coup of some sort, like if you're not on this team, then you're out. Or the other theory was that they're saying we're about to go to war, like we're about to start World War III. With the evidence or with the stories that are coming out today, I checked before we started recording. It looks like it's going to be both of those things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, Russia has been flying into Europe's, like NATO's airspace repeatedly in the last week. And just a couple days ago, Germany's president said that he doesn't or he doesn't consider NATO to be at peace with Russia. Like whatever we are, it's not peace. Like someone asked him, "What's NATO's relationship with Russia?" and he said, "Well, it's not peace. I can tell you that." Along those lines, Trump was questioned about it, about the German president's comments, and he said, "Well, I think NATO has the right to defend themselves, and if they need that, the U.S. will be here to help them." Homie, you're talking about World War III? You're
Mm.
talking, he's hinting at, beating around the bush, World War III? Like, if it has to happen, it has to happen. But man, I would hope that we could find some other alternatives.
Now this is going to sound really ignorant, so maybe you can cut this out. Would they then? Who would they be at war with? All of NATO?
So there's a couple things that are going on. NATO is saying that they consider themselves not at peace with Russia. And so, since the US is a member of NATO, the North
Right.
Atlantic Trade Organization, then we would, be part of, like, if I think that's part of the agreement. Like, if one goes to war, we all go to war. Like, that's why they got drug into Iraq.
So, but does it have to like just a NATO nation? If a nation goes to war, everybody comes.
Yes. I think that was part of the Truman deal, the Truman Pact after World War II, and the forming of NATO and the United Nations. I think that was it. Is that if we agree, like it was that was the way to prevent another war breaking out in Europe because they didn't want what happened right after World War One, because right after World War One, like World War Two was impossible to avoid because of the way that they left it with the Treaty of Versailles. So with the Truman Agreement after World War II, they formed NATO to basically assure no one can go to war with each other because if Germany tries to invade Poland again, the world will attack Germany, and Germany knows it. And so that was the big stick. If Russia, which obviously wasn't a part of NATO, if Russia declares war on Germany, then the world will declare war on Russia. That's the big threat of NATO.
Okay.
Well, and Russia knows this, like, I don't know what Putin's game is. I would hope no one would ever consider me a Putin defender, a Putin loyalist. Like, I'm not on Team
A Putin
Putin.
guy.
Yeah. But while this is happening, China, I guess, is preparing for a simultaneous amphibious and air assault invasion of Taiwan. Like the president Xi Jinping told his military to be ready for it by 2026, and they're buying up ferries. This is the thing I was reading about today, like before we recorded. They're China's mentality, like their mentality is not strictly communism. It's not strictly like the government owns everything and so we dictate. They have like a somewhat successful uh, hybrid of capitalism and communism. But one of the things they do is for a company to exist there, the government does have to own 50% of every business there. So, like, if you own a hot dog stand, the government owns half that hot dog
We
stand.
own a
I
hot
mean,
dog stand.
that's right. That's right. So the government gets 50% of every business there. Um, Also, they regulate business licenses by scale, as in like what you can do for the government. So like if you own a car company, like yeah, you can have a car company if during a time of war you dedicate your production to the state. Or if, the nation needs cop cars, guess what? You're making cop cars. Like yeah, you can have this license if it can be instrumental in the military. And so what's important about that is, or why that's causing a big fuss is all of China, while they said prepare for this invasion in 2026, um, the government has started to invest heavily in this ferry company, like this, like otherwise kind of unknown shipyard in South China. And the shipyard makes these ferries that you can drive your cars up onto, and they'll drive your car from like Norfolk to Nantucket or something like
Mhm.
that. Um, it so Taiwan is saying this is something to be concerned about. The nation of China is all of a sudden starting to heavily invest in this company that's making these ferries. When they said we're going to both do an airborne operation, like we said, we're going to parachute in there and we're going to do an
Mhm.
amphibious landing into Taiwan. They're like, uh,
Now,
so
I'm
you
only I'm
go
only going to
ahead.
ask this because I know you know.
Uh-huh.
Because why wouldn't you know? Uh, so Taiwan, did they break off of China? Did they declare independence from China?
So Taiwan is an island off of mainland China, and they've always been protected by the Strait of Taiwan. Whenever the communist revolution swept over China and killed the imperial family and like overthrew their version of a president that they had, Taiwan was protected. Like otherwise, they're the same people. They call themselves Chinese.
Okay.
Like to them, they're Chinese.
And they're
Um,
part of China.
and they're yeah, but so they have a president. So Taiwan considers themselves independent from communist China.
Okay.
Communist China considers Taiwan as like a stepchild we just haven't dealt with yet.
Okay.
That's their big talking line is this is an internal matter. because like throughout the 60s and throughout the Cold War, the US has pledged in one degree or another to protect Taiwan from China. Like, don't worry, because that's was our big, they were the last bastion of hope and, against otherwise communist giant China. And, Vietnam was going on back then too. So they said, don't worry, Taiwan, we're going to protect you. Well, China's stance is, that's an internal matter. That would be like if Oakland declared itself independent from Kansas.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't need Oklahoma to come in and protect Oakland. Like, don't worry, Oakland. Kansas can take care of us. That's
Right.
that's how communist China expresses it. And to be fair, a lot of other countries, including India and Pakistan, partner with China, like condoning that agreement. So, like a lot of countries that the US is cool with, like India and Pakistan and some
Hmm.
African countries, they're cool with China doing that. So, I don't think it's a cut and I don't think it's a black and white issue, but I would sure like it to not start World War. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that'd be cool. That'd be real cool.
Especially when there's all these mutually assured destruction acts, like NATO and the UN and the axis of evil, these partnerships, like, man, it sure does seem like we're pretty closer to the end times, brother.
Well, if it's not AI, if it's not global warming, if it's not floods, if it's not disease, if it's not
We have our
what else
fish
is
people, remember?
we got if it's not our alien fish people,
Our
then
alien fish people.
one way or another, one way or
One
another,
way.
it looks like the credits are like when you're watching a movie and you're
Yeah.
like, it's wrapping up.
Yeah. Oh,
This is about that.
I can hear the violin in the background almost like.
Yeah. Is that the closing song?
Well, on that, homie, it is time for me to get off. The
All
kids are
right.
about to come home.
All right. It's always good to see you.
Always good to see you. Did we miss anything?
We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So if we did miss anything, there's really nothing we could do about it.
Yeah.
We'll just have to hit it next time.
This is what you get. This is what
Yes,
you get when you watch Lawless.
that's right. All right, later on.
Later.